Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Ducksy Gaming and the third part of the Tornado Shot League Start Guide. This is going to be looking at, after completing our second Maven boss fight, we're actually going to run all the way up to getting the Pinnacle bosses down, getting some Void Stones, and getting the majority of the map completion done. The video was going to be split up into two parts in terms of getting to red maps, then pushing to Pinnacles. But this part of the game is really where you want to throw caution to the wind. This is where you're going to take nearly all of the deaths that you take for your playthrough. Because what you want to do from here is just push as fast as you can to get those Void Stones. Because the sooner you get them, and the sooner you get into T14 or 16 maps, the sooner you're going to start making really, really good money. So that's where I want to start with in this video, is be prepared to die and be prepared to feel frustrated at this part of the game. Everyone can tell you the most difficult part of the game in Path of Exile for the majority of players is when you have to corrupt your maps to completion and you have a character that you're still building. You don't have a ton of currency, you're running on a bit of a budget, and you corrupt a map and it goes triple fizz as elemental, minus max resistances, extra life as ES for the enemies, consecrated ground. You end up with just a shit show of mods that you have no choice but to run. And there is no one that does not struggle with these maps. You can watch any big streamer on day one and they are dying map after map after map at this stage because they know how important it is in softcore to get this progress and push through, because once you've done that map, you never even have to touch that map ever again. So you get a corrupted map, you complete it, let's say it's stagnation, you never have to do that map again. You don't have to touch it. So it's important to get through this as quickly as you can and don't get too deterred by deaths. To give you an idea of how I've got on, and this is a build I've played lots of times, I've died 37 times so far. I've now completed 132 maps in total, 86 bonus completion. I've got 2 Void Stones, 6 favorite map slots unlocked, and I'm level 88. The level alone tells you I've died quite a lot, but I don't care. I can make those levels up later on when my character is better geared. The reason I've actually taken quite a lot of deaths is because I've done it on the minimum amount of gear I think needed to get to this stage of Tornado Shot. So I've actually only made 3 more purchases since the last video, and the rest of the gear's pretty much stayed the same. I've recrafted some with essences, but it is pretty much exactly the same gear, which we'll go through later on. So I purchased a fractured bow. If you need to know how to purchase a cheap fractured item, I've linked a video in the video description, and it's up there somewhere now, and it will give you a really good breakdown of how to purchase fractured items for cheap and making sure you get the right ones. Along with that, I bought really the only expensive item in this build early on, which is the Lionized Jewel, because I want to turn as many nodes as I can into bow nodes, especially while we're not going crit. Now, this item is not a necessity. You could upgrade other items like your jewelry, your belt, and your quiver to make up the damage that we can get from this jewel, because it can be quite expensive. It's probably around 100C at League Start, but I've made plenty of currency farming essences. I had a couple of decent items drop. I've managed to get a few boss fragments. I've got loads of stuff that I've been able to sell and purchase this item. Now, obviously, this item now is probably like 20C or something. So the way I've done all my purchases, where I know what the price is at League Start, which I've used POE Ninja for, I've put that difference in the stash. So I bought my jewel for 25C, but they're normally around 90C at League Start. So I stuck 65 Chaos into a stash tab that I'm not allowed to access, because that's essentially the money for that jewel. I then bought a replica Conqueror's Efficiency. They've actually gone up in price. They started the league at about 10C and they're now 25. But obviously I paid 25 for it. The only other thing I've done is bought fusings to get my bow to a 5 link, which I've used the bench for. So they're the only upgrades I've made. I've done a fractured bow, which I've crafted with essences, Lionized Jewel, and replica Conqueror's Efficiency. That's got me 86 on my map completion. It's got some favorite slots unlocked, and it's got me my first 2 Void Stones. And for this type of build, your 3rd and 4th Void Stone are a country mile away. The DPS needed to get Uber Elder and Maven done on a Trinity Tornado Shot bow is pretty difficult, but we're not bothered about rushing that. We can absolutely farm a ton of currency with just 2 Void Stones. And if you're that desperate later on, you can pay someone to do a carry for your Uber Elder or your Maven. So let's talk about how to progress. So I've got here, how did I get here? So let's start at the very beginning. As I said, you're going to die. You are going to die a lot and you are going to get frustrated. You're going to see various clips of me where I will be muted, but I am 100% swearing. I've bricked maps where I've 6 portaled it because it puts stuff like consecrated ground, triple physical as elemental, enfeeble, life as ES where I literally can't get bosses down because as soon as they move into consecrated ground, they're getting full health again. So don't worry if you do brick maps or you make mistakes or you die a lot. As long as you're making progress, you get an Atlas completion, you get currency, you are making progress. So where I started was, I knew I needed some currency because I needed a 6-link and I needed some upgrades. And I was light on currency because all we were doing at the moment is concentrating getting to those mid-tier yellow maps. So I literally farmed essences. I've got all the essence nodes now. So what I did was take all of my white maps out of my stash and then I just ran them, put them in, ran them, got the essence. I've taken stream of consciousness so that I can get more essences and I can get other mechanics to come in. And as I picked up more completion, I blocked mechanics that I didn't want to see. It's going to vary depending on what content you like to do, but any content you don't want to do, just block it. It gives more chance of the content you do like coming through. And all I was doing was aiming for essences. But if Harvest turned up in my maps, I was doing it. If Tujan or Danig turned up, I was doing it. I was doing Blight until I got the oils to get my cheap Anoint. And then I was doing Legion just because you get decent stuff like incubators, you can get maps. There's lots of good stuff that drops from Legion. But I wasn't bothered about killing the boss. These are white maps when I'm in yellow maps. So the idea was get in, kill the essence monster. Whatever I've done up to that essence monster, fine. If there's nothing turns up before then, I'm portaling out and going into the next map. And it was just rinse and repeat in that. I was about 1.5 to 2 minutes per map. So within an hour, I'd done 30 maps. I had plenty of currency after selling the essences to buy my 6-link. And that's all I really needed to get going. I know I want at some point the Lionized gem, and I know I need a Conqueror's Efficiency gem. But for now, I've got all I need to motor through to early red maps. Okay, so let's get a list together of what you need to do to get to this stage where you've got your first 2 Void Stones and you're comfortably completing normal T16 Alch and Go maps. So as I've already gone through, the first thing you need to do is really, really farm hard on some essences. Just put all of your white maps in and lower tier yellow maps that you're never going to run. Get in and out, complete the essences and any sort of lucrative content that's in there. You don't even have to kill the boss. Just get in and out and do it for around an hour or until you run out of lower tier maps. And you're going to have enough currency to buy your 6-link and put some currency aside to then look for the upgrades that I mentioned earlier in the video. Now, if you want to, you can push further in terms of your farming. You could do another hour and you can upgrade more of your gear. I'll put a list on the screen here of the items that I would look to purchase and craft on to get upgrades. There's also a video I'll link in the description, which I covered tornado shot crafting earlier in the league, and all that is still relevant and really helpful. So if you feel like you want to push even further than what I've done in this video, then I would go and check out that guide, go and purchase some gear and get some crafting done. After this, we're going to need to go and complete Uber Lab. If you are killing T10 map bosses comfortably and you're not dying in those maps, you're more than ready to do Uber Lab. And when you ascend, I would actually go far shot for tornado shot. Normally I would go with focal point, but I think actually far shot really helps. And it also allows us to drop point blank, which is actually 2 nodes investment. This also means we don't have to worry about being on top of enemies. We can keep our distance and we can shoot at things from the other side of the map. It's safer and it just feels better because tornado shot, the way it clears, projectiles fly all over the place. They have quite a long travel distance overall. Point blank, I don't think it's that great for it, but far shot works really well. Eventually, we're going to work focal point into the build as well, but that's going to be much later on. So in a nutshell, ascend, go far shot. In this stage of the game, you need to favor DPS over survivability. Yes, if you're bricking every single map, then you probably need to look at your defenses. But I've run all the way up to here with just Grace and 1k armor, and I have died like 39 times, like I said. But I've not ever felt like I wasn't going to get my goals completed. And I know it can push even further with just these bog standard defenses because we're moving very quick. We're shooting, we're killing stuff at the edge of the screen. Most map bosses, because we've got decent evasion, are not killing us. So I'm really happy, even on low defenses, that this build can push and get the void stones for most people. Along with this, you want to make sure you're selling stuff when you can. Don't sit on currency that's worth money and don't sit on chaos orbs. Chaos orbs devalue really, really quickly in the first few days. For example, a divine orb on day 1 might be 60 chaos. On day 2, it's 100. Other stuff goes up. So deli orbs, for example, on day 1 are normally about 4 chaos. Day 2, they start to creep up. By day 3 and 4, some of them are 10 or 15 chaos. So if you don't think you're going to spend your chaos, don't sit on it. Buy stuff like delirium orbs, exalts normally go up, basically anything. Divines, just buy something that isn't chaos, because chaos gets devalued really early on. It does tend to peter out after the first 3 or 4 days. But early on, if you've got big stacks of chaos, don't sit on them. I'm going to show you the Atlas tree that I was using. This is not one I would necessarily recommend. It's something I'm testing out because I want to try a boss rushing strategy from pretty much day one at next league. But before we get to this stage, your skill tree is going to be the same. So when we left the last episode, we had these essence nodes. We had the map nodes here. We had stream of consciousness, had these map nodes here. And we were taking these map nodes and these essence nodes with our next points. Once you got all that in, that's really all you need. Essences is just guaranteed money. Can't go wrong. If you got 2 chaos, put it on the map device. If not, or it's not on the map device, doesn't matter. It's still absolutely awesome money. I say what I've done is gone for a boss rushing strategy straight away. So I've gone for Exarch because that's what I'm going to farm. I've gone for the synth map drops here. I'm going to go for Guardian map drops there. Then I'm going to go for Conqueror map drops here. Now, if you're not someone who wants to boss rush because the profit is back-ended on your way to getting your tree completed, you are missing out on some stuff that you could add in that's going to make you some profit. Because I plan to rush through all of the map tiers as quick as I can, I plan to be farming T14 to 16 maps really quickly, which is why I'm going with a sort of Alch and Go boss rushing strategy straight away. It's a strategy I tested this league and I really enjoyed it much more than all of the other strategies that I tried because it's a no-brainer that takes no scarabs, no fragments, no nothing. You just Alch and Go. If you want a more active tree that's going to get you more league content and probably get you more consistent profit on your way to get into T16 maps, this is the tree that I would recommend. You're essentially taking all of the expedition nodes here, here, and then up here. Taking all of the harvest nodes. You don't really need to take these 2 that don't add that much. We're taking the harvest nodes there, and then we're taking more chance of guaranteeing harvest here. And then we're basically blocking every content other than harvest and expedition. They're the only things we want to see along with essences. If you do this tree, you are going to see expedition, harvest, and essences pull up all the time. Harvest is really good money. Expedition is good money if you get lucky and you get some rerolls or you get a decent logbook. And obviously essences we know are guaranteed money. Some essence monsters you end up having to skip because you know by looking at the Arch Nemesis modifiers that they're either going to kill you or they're going to take too long to kill and not going to be worth it. So I would keep them personally because they're always a really good thing where you can nip back to lower tier maps to quickly farm them to get some currency if need be. But this is the tree I would aim for if you want to not worry about having to use fragments. You want guaranteed income to come into your maps and you still want to progress fairly quickly. Like, yes, you are going to be slowed down a little bit if you get a map that has harvest and expedition in. It's definitely going to take you longer to complete the map and it can be more difficult if you've got horrible mods on it. But this is kind of the tree that I went for league start this league and it worked really, really well. And it's something if you don't want to just go and boss rush straight away, I would 100% recommend it. So before I close out the video, I thought I'd run through 3 more things. Firstly, I'll run through the gear that I've got on just so you can have a look at what sort of level I'm at. Going to run through the gem links and what gem links I recommend you aim for. And then lastly, I'm just going to run an Alch and Go map showcase because I'm conscious that all of my footage so far has been a very, very tough content, boss fights and stuff that makes the build not look particularly good. But all the footage I've shown previously is of the corrupted maps that I'm running for completion. Most of them have got horrible mods. I've not necessarily got all the gear that I've currently got on my character, but I want to give you a realistic view of what it's going to be like. I don't want to just show white maps and Alch and Go maps, and then you get into T16 maps and start getting obliterated in the odd map, and come to me and say, oh, the build's rubbish, I keep dying. Like I said, you're going to die with this sort of build because it's a squishy bow build that we're going to gradually get on board bit by bit. So if we go here and have a look at deaths, I think it was 39, 37 deaths. And expect, even more than that if you haven't played the build that much. I've played Tornado Shot league after league, so maybe I know some things that other people don't. As long as you're still progressing and you're having fun, I would ignore that counter 100%. It doesn't matter. So let's go through my gear first. So I've already mentioned kind of where to go about buying gear and how to craft it. But yeah, the bow was just a fractured bow base, and then I've spammed anger essences on it until I got something half decent. This isn't even very good. I think I could probably and maybe should recraft this, but it's good enough. I've got a helmet, is just life and resistances, nothing else. My amulet, I've anointed Fury Bolts because it's nice and cheap. And again, this is not very good. It's got mediocre lightning damage to attacks, crit, which does nothing, and then just life and resistances. This ring here, again, is just some lightning damage to attacks. Other than that, life and resistances, and not even a lot of life. I'll definitely need to recraft that. We've got a ring, again, not a lot of life because I keep running out of alchemies. This one is a bit better. It's got decent resistances and decent damage to attacks. And when I craft 50 life on this, this is going to be a fairly decent ring. I can use Blessed Orb on it to get that chaos resistance up a bit more. For the gloves, again, these are fairly decent-ish, but they are just bog standard. It's lightning damage to attacks, attack speed, life, and some resistance. The belt is trash, needs updating. It's got some LE damage to attacks, rubbish life, and rubbish resistances. And the boots, again, are just life and resistances. I've crafted increased movement speed and cannot be chilled because chill was really bugging me. I'm going to look to maybe get Almond Immune on the build later on. I'm not sure yet because it's quite an expense and you have to give up quite a lot to do it. So for now, I've just gone cannot be chilled. And I got lucky in my Uber Lab and got 80% chance to avoid being stunned if you've killed recently, which makes me basically stun immune in maps now, which is really nice. Although later on in the build, I'm going to show you how to get fully stun immune without this enchant. So that's the gear. For flask, I'm not running a third flask because I haven't had a sulfur flask drop. I've got my diamond flask ready for when we go crit. So for now, I'm just running a granite and a jade flask. Both of them have either increased armor or evasion on. And then I've got a quicksilver flask with increased duration and increased attack speed. You don't need these specific mods, but I would always go for armor and evasion on these two flasks. Quicksilver can either be movement speed, attack speed, maybe crit chance later on once you transition. And that's kind of the setup. It is nothing special. In terms of the links, I'm running a 5-link ballista. If you wanted a 6-link, just add LE damage to attacks. So I've got Tornado Shot, still linked up by a Ballista Totem and a Focus Ballista. Inspiration, which is mainly there to lower the mana cost. And then we have a GMP to fire out more Tornado Shot projectiles. In our main 6-link, we've got Tornado Shot with Mirage Archer and GMP. Then Inspiration, again, mainly to lower the mana cost. LE damage with attacks. And then we have Trinity support. In our helmet, we've got Blood Rage, Haste, and Hydrosphere. Please note, I'm only using the Vile Haste on this. Don't try and activate this aura. You won't have the mana for it. This is just for bosses, same as Hydrosphere. And then Blood Rage is to get Frenzy charges while we're mapping. Sorry, I just realized in the gear, I forgot to go over the quiver. This was a bow's fire and additional arrow quiver that I actually ID'd off the ground. I haven't recrafted this because an additional arrow is probably the best sort of DPS you can get on a quiver. But this is kind of what you're looking for. Just damage, attack speed, life, prod speed, bow damage, LE damage with attack. So there's a ton of decent mods on a quiver. Throw any sort of essences at it that have got damage if you feel that your quiver needs an upgrade. Okay, back to the links. Gone through the 6 link. So in terms of auras, you've got Anger, Precision, and Grace. With the Precision, I'm just running level 6 because on our skill tree, we are taking the Dex Accuracy Mastery rather than the Mana Reservation for Precision. So you're not going to be able to push it much higher. I could push it higher, but at the moment, I'm hoping my accuracy is still fine. Yeah, so my accuracy is 4, 5, 7, 6, and my life is 4, 2. So I don't need to push it any higher. There's no need because we don't need the crit from it. Flame Dash, you just want to push up as high as your int allows, really. I try not to push it too high in case I want to take a bit of gear off that's got int on it. Then if I replace it, I have to find intelligence on that bit of gear as well. But I could think you could push it a bit higher, maybe to 7 or 8. The higher you push it, the quicker cooldown you get, essentially. Then we've got our mark on hit of life tap, sniper's mark on hit. And then here is a spare socket where I'm leveling a lightning arrow. This is where you could put in a guard skill. We obviously can't run Molten Shell yet because we've not got Determination up and running. But you could put something like a steel skin on left click in here. And that would work quite nicely. So your last gem slot here, you could put a tornado in. if you want to press more buttons on bosses, but it would mean 3 ballistas, which is 3 button presses, then your hydrosphere, then your tornado, and you do keep having to redo your tornado every few seconds. But if you really, really want to get more single target DPS in, you can fit a tornado gem in there as well. So I thought I'd talk us through an example map that I've just completed, an Alch and Go map. It's a fairly standard sort of map that you're going to get. There's nothing particularly deadly on it, but Beyond is very, very difficult on a character that doesn't have a ton of DPS, and there's a few points in the map that I'll pull out as a highlight. Now, I'm not going to show the whole map because, you know, it's just boring watching someone map. What I'm going to do is pull out certain points and kind of go through why I wouldn't recommend sticking with the build as it is to farm and 100% transitioning into the crit version. So let's just play the map. And you'll see almost straight away that I get a bit overwhelmed with Beyond monsters. So we also got influence on this. So we've got Syrian Art mods popping up and Beyond monsters popping up. And straight away, I actually have to just book it out of town because I'm going to get absolutely annihilated. So I need to go and make some space, clear some monsters. So we get, you know, decent loot drop from the map. Probably walk over like 10 chaos worth of loot from the map. But at no point in the map did I feel comfy. And it was evident that I needed more DPS. Survivability is obviously going to feel bad with Grace on its own, but if I was killing stuff much quicker, I wouldn't worry about it. So what I'm going to do now is just move on to the boss damage. Okay, so what I want to do is have a bit of analysis on the boss DPS. Now, this map does have 25% more boss life, so we need to take that into account. But realistically, you're never going to have maps with perfect mods. You're going to have increased life on probably half of the maps that you do in some form or another, whether it's they take less damage, they have more life, they got life as ES. So I think it's fine to include it as an analysis. What we're going to look at is the time to kill for a boss that's just stationary. So this boss does move, so the time to kill goes up a bit. But what we can do is look at how long the first half of the health takes to go and then double it. So if we move in here, we're going to say we start hitting now, which is 151.8. Then we're going to look at when it gets to half health, which is now, and that's 155.6. So it's about 4 seconds, essentially, to take half of this monster's life. If our totems stay up, it would be another 4 seconds to kill it. So that's 8 seconds for a T15 stationary boss, which I think needs to be better. Because you've got the issue that if it isn't stationary, you then have to keep moving because we've got fast shot. You have to make sure your totems are staying up, and you're at more risk of dying if you have to keep repositioning. So overall, the boss takes about 12 seconds to kill, because we have to keep repositioning. And if I want a comfortable map farmer, that's not good enough DPS. And really, to get better DPS, we'll have to go crit. Yes, we could squeeze out some more with Precise Technique, but Precise Technique is just really the platform we're using to get to T16 map for cheap. So we'll just fast forward, and there is a death coming up, which I'll go through again to show you kind of how you can get in trouble with not having enough DPS. So again, we kind of got unlucky with the mods. We've got a Mana Siphon here, then I think an Echoist pack pops up. So we were a little bit unlucky, but here there wasn't really much we could have done to avoid this death because the monsters literally spawn underneath me. So if we go here, you can see them starting to spawn here, but obviously in POE, you're never ever going to be able to see something like that. It just looks like bodies on the floor. And then literally they come up, attack me straight away with Echoist, which doubles their attacks, and I don't even have time to react. I'm just dead. So even if I had more DPS, that may have killed me anyway. But these are the kind of things that are going to affect your leveling up and your clear. So if we go to the beginning of the map, I've basically got 24% XP. I die once, we go to the end of the map, and I've got 30. So I've made only 5% experience at level 88 in a T15 map. But it does mean that you can afford to die once every map, but it's going to take you 20 maps to level up, which is too long. Which is why the next video is going to concentrate on getting our DPS up, getting our survivability up. So other than Atlas Tree, what else can I show you that's going to help you to progress? So the next thing is Betrayal. You can see I've used all my Betrayal missions bar one red one that just popped up. Essentially, I've used that time when I was farming essences to also do all my Betrayal missions to try and get nearly everything unveiled. Unfortunately, the two things I wanted, which were Gravicius's chest craft and Elrion's minus mana cost jewelry craft, elude me still. And I must have killed or detained or questioned Elrion at least 9 to 10 times. He has dropped lots of jewelry, but it's not had the mod that I need on it. As you can see, I've actually got a Katarina ready to go because I've literally been constantly farming. But I don't want to do it yet because we've got Elry on in Intervention. Intervention spawns on every single Betrayal. So I want to build up some missions and then try and get the craft. But they're things that you do want to target. Get your unveil sorted out. Again, there's a written guide in the video description, which is going to really just highlight what I've gone through in this video and hopefully be a bit of a step-by-step guide on how to progress. If you do get stuck, feel free to ask questions in the video. But really, this bit's about perseverance and willpower because it does suck and it feels bad to die quite often. The other option is to take a step back, farm maybe low tier yellows and spend hours gearing up to then take on the content comfortably. It's still going to feel bad though. Yes, you might do it a bit better. You might complete it a little bit quicker and safer, but you've spent so long gearing up that if you would have just thrown yourself through that content, you'd have been done with it hours ago. So the last thing to go through is the skill tree because it changes slightly. We're obviously dropping these nodes here because we're going far shot. There's also another few tweaks that we've made. So I've dropped these 2 nodes here and I've dropped this life node. And then really we've just started equipping nodes for our Lionel's Fall here. So we've taken these ones here because they're attack speed and damage. Taken this mastery here because it means we can drop these 2 points that are leech and take it for 1 point instead. And then we've taken this jewel socket to put in our Conqueror's efficiency. And this is the tree that you want to aim for. The reason I've gone up to this int node is because we are going to take all these nodes here, but there's no point at the moment because we're still precise technique. So there is quite a big skill tree respec to come once we go to crit. But at the moment, this is the tree I would recommend for your level 88 build. If you've got a bit more points, you can go life here and then go up here. If you get to say 91, for example, just take this life node, and then this damage node here. That would take you to 91. That's fine. But that's kind of it for this video. And it really is much more simple than people think to get your void stones done with tornado shot. If you feel you don't like the skill, switch to lightning arrow. That's also absolutely fine for getting this sort of content done. Now, it's not comfortable. I don't want you to leave this video thinking you're going to blitz everything and you're going to one-shot bosses, you're never going to die. It's league starting with a bow skill that is notoriously taking a lot of currency to get going. All I'm trying to do is find the cheapest way to get it going, but it's never going to feel as comfortable as other builds. But if you only want to play one build or you want to league start bows, this is a really, really good way of doing it. So that's it for this video. Bit of a short one this time, but I feel like it's actually much more straightforward than people think to get the Pinnacle bosses down. The next episode is going to be where we get together our first farming strategy with the goal of I want to farm X amount of divines to get my gear so that I can then farm any content I want in a game. I can go and take on Uber Elder, Maven. This is never going to be, for me personally, an Uber boss killer, and I won't kind of go that far in terms of the build because if you want an Uber boss killer, this is not the build for you. This is a mapping build. I won't even kill bosses with this build because it's a waste of time because I can earn more mapping. Like, yes, if I get a boss map offered in Kirak, I'm going to do it, but I'm never going to put a boss map other than the first time into the map device and activate it. I'm going to sell that boss map and get mapping and make currency because that's really what this build is designed for. So if you're after a bosser, 100% don't recommend running this build. But if you're after a fairly cheap mapper that gets up and running really quickly and is super fun, then hopefully you stick with the series and there's much more to come. So thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.